We got some breaking news on the Amber Geiger case. The police officer that killed the man in his residence. So that's what I'm finna watch now, and I want you guys to watch it with me. Ha! I can't holler because I'm working.
It is believed that jurors have reached a verdict in the Amber Geiger murder trial. Jury started deliberations just yesterday. They have several options to consider in this case. They can find her guilty of murder. They can find her guilty of the lesser charge of manslaughter, or they could also find her not guilty in the killing of her neighbor, Botham Jean. Several of the prosecutors, the former criminal prosecutors that we've brought in and we've talked to, have also said they can also have a hung jury. They could not reach a verdict. That is possible as well. The judge
I'm nervous.
back into the court a few minutes ago, and we're waiting to hear from her right now. But we are hearing that the jury has reached a verdict in Amber Geiger's murder trial.
I smoked about 20 cigarettes.
Yeah, all is quiet in the courtroom right now. A lot of the criminal defense attorney that we had on earlier this morning, who was a former Dallas County Assistant District Attorney, came in and said there is a chance that if the jury came back very quickly, that it could be a hung jury, that they could not reach, that it was a possibility that they could not reach a verdict in this case, and that we might have an answer very quickly in this. So we're still waiting to see right now exactly what decision the jury has reached. Now, the jury did come back to the judge earlier this morning and asked two questions. They wanted some more information about the charges, about the charge of manslaughter. They also wanted some more information about the Castle Doctrine. They wanted to know exactly what that meant. Let's listen in.
The jury having reached a verdict, Ms. Geiger and your team, would you please stand? We, the jury, unanimously find the defendant, Amber Geiger, guilty of murder as charged in the indictment. No outburst. And it is signed by the presiding juror, who is juror number 11. Mr. Rogers, would you like to have the jury poll? There you go. All right. You may be seated, Ms. Geiger.
Okay, what's guilty of what?
We're going to take a break. You all have a long lunch break today, and we will resume court at 1 p.m.
You just heard from the jury, from the judge there. That is the family of Botham Jean right there in the court, exchanging hugs and tears as well. Again, Amber Geiger found guilty of murder in the death of Botham Jean, her neighbor. The judge quickly telling everyone that she did not want to hear any outbursts in the courtroom, going ahead and going ahead and issuing a break, basically, and said that they will resume court at 1 p.m. But again, Amber Geiger, former Dallas police officer Amber Geiger, found guilty of murder in the Botham Jean case. We have Sean Rabb, who's standing by, who's been closely following this case all along. Sean, your thoughts?
Okay, this is what happened.
Guilty of murder. Here's what we know is that just
I'm gonna let Sean talk and then I'll tell you.
The jurors had two questions. One of those questions centered around manslaughter. The other question centered around the Castle Doctrine as a defense. We've heard that from Amber Geiger's attorneys, Castle Doctrine, mistaking a fact. Guilty of murder means that they looked at the murder charge, they looked at manslaughter, decided manslaughter was not right, and clearly chose the higher charge of murder, said she was guilty of all the elements of murder. There's been a large outburst in the hallway. You may have actually heard an outburst in the courtroom, and you heard the judge admonish, no outbursts. As people streamed out of the court, they made a loud
You going to jail, Amber.
in the hallway. And so
you going to jail.
watching those folks in the hallway. many experts felt like
Go
with the
cry,
questions
girl.
that we're
You're
having
going
this
to
morning,
jail.
we've been talking to lawyers. Said, well, maybe they're no longer considering murder, or maybe they still are, and manslaughter. They're trying to look and see if that fits the elements of the crime as it was laid out over the 6 days of testimony.
Yeah,
So
Sean, that
murder is the verdict from this jury.
right murder shows that she had an intent to kill. Correct?
So intentionally and knowingly causing the death of another person by their actions. So remember, during testimony, Jason Hermes, the lead prosecutor, he tried to pin her down on her intent, if you remember that. And she said, my intent was to stop the threat. And he responded, you intended to kill both of John. She said yes. And so I think that probably was a factor in the jurors making their decision. We don't know that, and we may not get to poll this jury because the next phase of this obviously is going to be the punishment phase. But as you can imagine, the family and all of those who for a year have been calling for justice believe that justice
This
has
been going on for a
with
year.
this guilty verdict. In fact,
But she went into his apartment, mistaking it for her apartment. She was on the wrong floor. She stayed on one level, he stayed on another level. She was on the wrong level and went into the apartment. The apartment wasn't locked. And when she opened the door and saw he was in the apartment, she shot. And she was a police officer, a Dallas police officer. So we've been waiting on this trial. It's been a big thing in our city. And we've been, they've been really protesting about it. So people been waiting to see what the verdict was going to be from last year. So this is the verdict now. We're just waiting to see what the sentence is.
So, right, when you step off, when you get off the elevators, we're in the foyer. There's an area where all of the news crews are shut up. John, just show where we are. This has been the International Media Center since this trial began. Down the hallway, through these doors, past the magnetometers and all the sheriff's deputies, the last courtroom on the right is where the presiding judge of the felony courts conducts her business, Judge Tammy Kent. That's courtroom number 204. So that's where we are in relationship to the 204th. You may be able to see the throng of people in the hallway.
Yeah.
Remember, the courtroom only holds 49 seats, and so many people filed in as word began to filter out that there was, in fact, a verdict. We knew that there was a verdict because we saw the Botham Jean family, who had been upstairs in the district attorney's office, come down on the elevator looking very solemn. Prior to their coming down, with the first red light we had this morning, we saw some lawyers go back in, but not the family, so we didn't feel it was a verdict at that time. But when we saw them get off the elevator, very solemn, holding hands, moving towards the magnetometers, we knew that this jury that started deliberating around 12:52, around 1 o'clock yesterday afternoon, worked until 5 o'clock or so, a little after yesterday, and came back starting at 8:30 this morning. We knew that indeed there was a verdict that they had reached around the 10:30 hour this morning.
Yeah, guilty of murder, punishable 5 to 99 years. Sean, the judge said that they're going to take a break right now. Very quickly issued that break. Said they will resume court at 1 p.m. What's the next step?
So the next step is, in fact, the punishment phase.
Punishment.
And that's almost a mini trial in and of itself. During the punishment phase, the state puts on evidence to show why this person needs to go away for a long time. To try and mitigate that, you have the defense, which puts on evidence. Typically, it's character evidence of folks who speak to a person and the totality of their life and say, this is why this person needs mercy. And mercy can be 5 years in this case, not 99. So you're trying to mitigate the length now of the time that you'll serve to equal justice for the crime you're convicted of. And that's what happens in the punishment phase.
You know, this case got so much local attention and so much national attention as well. And I thought it was interesting as we were talking to some of the criminal defense attorneys, not related to the case, but following the case. And it seemed like everyone that came in that we talked to said that they felt that both sides did a good job presenting their cases, really showing that they felt like this was a fair trial. We were able to seat a jury in the area. It didn't have to be moved. So this guilty verdict really does seem like both sides were able to present exactly what they wanted to in this case.
So I think there are three big factors here.
Yeah.
You had a judge who was driving the justice bus in this case who would not be swayed by any kind of public pressure. She felt they could seat a jury here. Remember, they sent out 4,000 jury summons to try to get this pool. 800 people responded from the 4,000. They went through that process and they came up with 16. And the judge sequestered them for the entire time of the trial. That's something that we had not seen in Dallas before. We've seen jurors sequestered during deliberation, but
Toby
not for
Shook.
the entire time of live testimony
see you
in the
now.
guilt or innocence phase. So all of that. Then you had the state, Jason Hermes, Justin Fine, Doug Gladden, who worked on this tirelessly to put together their case for murder. Across the aisle from them in that courtroom, Robert Rogers, Toby Shook, Mike Mola, maybe the best appellate lawyer in the state, all of them working together. Toby Shook's reputation well known. Robert Rogers has long been a Dallas Police Association attorney representing police officers, and they all worked on this case like it was a capital case. And that means they put everything into it, and it was a battle in that courtroom every single day, a legal battle, and it was a good battle. And one day you'd say, oh, the state's doing good. The next day, it looked as though the defense were getting their points in, making their points, scratching away.
Go on, sit down, Tope.
This was
Tope tired. He been working. Tope
a
tired.
legal case. But the interest in it, there was no precedent for what we were dealing with in this case.
Good point.
And the facts were so incredible, they were hard for people to believe.
And you talk about the jurors in this case.
So-
10 of the 12 people of color, 5 are African American. 8 of the jurors are women. The 4 alternates were women as well. It does seem like they were able to find this out of that huge jury pool, those that would hear this case and would find exactly. Obviously, they were very, I would say, quick to come to the decision that she was guilty of murder.
Well, I think it's hard to say quick because I think every jury is different. I don't know. It seems like the O.J. Simpson trial was 8 or 9 months, and that jury was out 3 hours or 4 hours. So what I will say is that I feel like they were working, and they were working together. I mean, it's clear that they were working because they had questions. And I think perhaps, and of course we're only second guessing in hallway quarterbacking, if you will, but murder was the higher charge. They asked a question about manslaughter, and maybe they agreed manslaughter didn't fit. Cheers are going up. That's why we occasionally look around, because cheers are going up down the hallway. I will tell you, the jury was extremely diverse, not only ethnically diverse, but age. There were some jurors that looked to be younger, perhaps, than both from John and Amber Geiger. And there were some on that same jury who could have been grandparents to both of them. So there were age diversity, there were ethnicity diversity, there was also gender. There were a lot of women on this jury. And so, but interestingly, I think it's clear these jurors did pay attention. They did their work. They apparently asked thoughtful questions, and they've come to this decision.
Yeah, we've been watching. So we're seeing all the commotion in the hallways right now. The family of Botham Jean, who's been out there in the courtroom just a few minutes ago. The judge was speaking to security. She had about 4 or 5 security officers up there, just making sure. I think that everything is calm. This has been such a emotional case. What are you seeing in the hallways right now? You mentioned cheers, but anything for security to be concerned about, to be having this meeting with the judge?
So, no. We see some hugging of family members and those celebrating the verdict. But let me share with you, there are 2 families in that courtroom. And while there aren't as many people representing Amber Geiger, her family members are in that courtroom also. In fact, it's been so many people in there that at times they've sat shoulder to shoulder and side by side with the family members of Mr. Botham Jean. So they are at the other end of this emotional pendulum that's taking place on the 7th floor of the courthouse right now. They're sad, they're heartbroken, they're crying, they're hurt. While there's jubilation, there's joy and pain in the same place right at this moment. And I think that we have to remember that as well in this process.
Very true.
So I think the judge is really just talking with the deputies and the bailiffs and making sure that all in the courtroom can get out clearly and freely and safely.
I thought it was interesting. Dallas Police Department put out a statement even before this verdict came out. I mean, I think they even had to put it out yesterday, basically reminding everyone to, when the verdict comes in, that this was the jury. They reached this verdict to respect the verdict, and also to remember Botham Jean. This was a man, I know that many that know him spoke that he was a man of peace and that he would not want any violence as a result of any verdict in this case.
There's no reason for violence today in the city, people. Let's not do that.
Expect the police to call for calm, ask for citizens in this community to respect the verdict. And let's say, well, there's been some emotion, there's been some anger. Remember some of the town hall meetings like last September at Botham Jean's birthday, last September? Remember the anger at that town hall meeting at the Friendship West Baptist Church? But there has been peace. And so there will maybe have been some concern. In fact, we know that the police department had been preparing for perhaps unrest following this verdict. We know that the police department...
That's Amber, the lady who, the police officer. That's found guilty. That's her.
Was necessary. We know that the parade this year for the state fair was...
Tobe, you lost. Oh, Tobe, you lost the case. But you took on a hard case, though, bro.
The police department to ask folk to respect the verdict, just as we heard from Botham Jean's pastor yesterday, Sammy Berry, in the letter he had written while he was out of the city. So, a sigh of relief, certainly, I think, from across this community that there's no concern, should not be concerned, hopefully won't be concerned about any kind of negative backlash to this. But I think that what we saw happen today from a very diverse jury has to say to the citizens of Dallas County that we can ignore pressure, public pressure. We can just go into the cocoon, if you will, that is jury deliberation, and do our work and come back with what we think.
This is Sean Raff, one of our news reporters.
Amber Geiger just left the courtroom just a couple seconds ago. Stood up. You could see that she was visibly had emotionally been shaken. Walked out of the courtroom again. The judge calling for everybody to return at 1, so she's gonna have a couple hours. We can see in the courtroom what appears to be her family members embracing. You got to remember there's two sides to every case, and there's one family celebrating and one in tears right now.
Absolutely. Very strange case. Remember, she was off duty. She did think she was at her own apartment, at her own door. Never a case with this set of facts before.
All right, Sean Rabb, thank you so much for your insight. We appreciate it. Again, former Dallas police officer Amber Geiger found guilty in the murder of Botham Jean. Court will resume again at 1 p.m. Stay with Fox 4 for the very latest online at fox4news.com, as well as right here on Fox 4.
This has been a Fox 4 News Alert.
Okay. Thank y'all for watching. If you didn't watch, oh well. It's my shit. I do what the fuck I want. Out.